Moon in Gemini. Actually, that's one of the best positions of the moon. Because the moon has a friend, Mercury, and Gemini is a Mercury ruled sign, so the moon feels pretty comfortable when it's in the sign of Mercury, when it's in Gemini. The moon symbolizes our emotions, how we perceive the world, through what color lenses we perceive the world. So it's probably the most important planet when it comes to how happy one can be in their life, how happy they can look through the world, look at the world, how happy they feel within themselves. And when the moon is in Gemini, a person is pretty content with life overall. They tend to have pretty optimistic and attitude towards life with a sense of humor, because Gemini is kind of a humorous intellectual sign. Moon in Gemini doesn't get too bogged down in emotions, getting overly emotional, overly flustered up. It doesn't mean they're not without feelings, but somehow there is lightness of their feelings. There is ability to deal with their feelings more easily, rather than with a lot of deepness and heaviness and tension, within. Of course, this can be changed if there is a planet in the same sign as the moon, like the North Node or Saturn. It can make how you feel, your happiness, and how you perceive the world much more negative and burdened. But usually, the moon on its own, or with the good planets in Gemini, tends to give one pretty optimistic and a gregarious and approach to the world, and quite positive, happy attitude. And such people tend to be very communicative as well. They have an emotional need. The moon shows what emotional need you have. They have an emotional need to connect to others, to exchange ideas, they're quite curious people. They have a emotional need to be learning all the time, to be stimulated constantly. So often such people can be even a bit restless, moving to and fro, and or at least, even if not physically restless and moving here and there, they have a need for stimulation of their mind constantly. So they have a very childlike approach to life, very curious. Everything is approached with excitement in life. They perceive the world as as a source of constant new surprises and information. So it's fun. Life for such people is fun, to be honest. And you see them often reading a lot or gaining knowledge. They're trying to collect knowledge a lot, exchanging or giving knowledge themselves, So they can be very good in such professions as well, which needs exchange of information, which needs skills and learning. And they have a need as well for acquiring new skills as well. This is Gemini energy. And Gemini is the sign of Gemini is comprised of a man and a woman, the ancient sign of Gemini. So Gemini is very much related to relationships with the other sex, interestingly enough, even though they say, oh, it's an androgynous sign and whatnot. But the moon being in Gemini shows that people with moon in Gemini have an emotional need to relate to others, an emotional need when it comes to relationship as well, and it doesn't have to be always like sexual relationships, but relationship between two people. And such people have great need of those things. So another interesting thing of moon in Gemini is, yes, they can be very gregarious, very talkative. They can have good sense of humor. They can have a more bright, and sometimes they say that Gemini moons don't have very deep emotions, but this is not to their lack. Actually, they temper their emotionalism with rationality, which helps them have a more control of their emotions, helps them have more more ease with which they perceive life and they approach life. And sometimes they can be called the social butterflies, having a need to constantly move from one conversation to another, to and fro, jumping from one subject to another subject to another subject. And even sometimes you can notice that the person with moon in Gemini, they cannot keep their eyes focused too long in one place, you know. Often you'll see them, they're skipping here and there, even while they're talking with you, something very excited and interested about, you'll see them, their eyes skimming around everyone, because they just have such a need of constantly seeing what's happening around them and taking in information, that they're constantly stimulated of any movement they see around them, anything that comes up, or any person that moves, they'll notice it, you know. It's not so much about noticing details, but about taking in what's around them, and not missing what's happening, basically. Yeah, this is overall what Moon in Gemini is. I really actually find this one of the very positive positions in astrology to have, unless of course you have the Moon together with Saturn or with North Node or with Mars, some of the more difficult planets, which makes a person emotionally much more difficult, much more, you know, unsettled. And the mother, the moon often symbolizes what kind of mother you had, or your relationship with her could have been quite friendly, because Mercury is because Gemini is a very friendly sign. And also the mother could have been gregarious herself, talkative, fun person who has social contacts and communications, who is curious as well. And often for the male horoscope, it can show what woman he's attracted to, what woman he tends to marry. Once he settles into a marriage, he would often feel very comfortable around women who have qualities like his moon. And he'll feel very comfortable with women who are very intelligent, who are very, you know, curious, who are not very much of a housewives, you know. Actually, they'll be skillful, even career women, you know, women who are very well informed about what's happening in the world and around them, and who are constantly interesting, you know. And actually, anyone who has Moon in Gemini, they're kind of a skillful people. They're people who you're not going to be feeling bored around, you know. They kind of invent new things to do, one activity after another activity, and they have this need of constant change around them. It's a very changeable position, but it makes their life so much more interesting. And as we said, Gemini, it has affinity to friendships as well, and relationships between people. So again, Moon in Gemini, for them friendships are important. They tend to be good at making friendships. It doesn't mean they will have many friendships. Sometimes they can be less, but they're good at doing those things. Thank you.